let's get into the guts of the lawyer's professional liability policy. In today's litigious society, it always has been. I don't have to share with you. You're a lawyer. I mean, you serve a great purpose. Contrary to what some cynical types will say, that, who was it? Shakespeare, whatever that stupid quote he made, and I will say stupid quote. Again, I find lawyers, and let me back up. I'm not saying this because I'm trying to be brown-nosed Bill here. No, I'm saying it because it's the truth. Owning a business and having a lot of young kids as I go through that period of my life, there are going to be disputes. That's why lawyers exist. And if it wasn't for the top-flight representation that I have, both professionally and personally, when these items crop up, I would sit there. My nature is to fight with everybody because I was taught you put your chest out, keep your shoulders wide, keep your head down, and you go. So I'm not afraid to fight, and I'm not scared. But is that the way that things get resolved? Okay, sometimes that mentality works. In sports, it works most of the time. If you're in a fight, if you're out competing, if you're in war, MacArthur, Patton, Coach Ditka, Bob Knight, all these guys, that works in that world. But in the business world, is me going in at 6'6", 245 pounds and bullying everybody? Is that really what works? I don't think so. Thank God that I've got great lawyers that take it, and it's not personal to you. You watching this is what you do. Whether it be divorce, bankruptcy, business disputes, or what have you, kids getting in trouble, all of those things, the last two that, are a regular part of my life for the last 28 years, those are items where you come into play. So now this is your business. Just like in my business, I've got an exposure. If you say to me, hey, Mike, is this covered, or any of my staff, do I have protection for this? And we just flippantly say, oh, yeah, you're good. And then a loss occurs and what have you. Now, you don't think you have every right in the world to come back to me and say, hey, dummy, you said that I have protection for this, and the claims specialist is now telling me I don't. What the hell's going on? And you would be absolutely right. Now, I'd like to say every time in my career that the adjuster who says that made a mistake. We've never had an errors and omissions claim, and you watching this are probably the same. But for staff, and again, we're workflow oriented to the nth degree, but people are humans. They make mistakes. Even the best employee, the best associate, team member, whatever term you like to use, even you or I could make a mistake. We're human. I'd love to tell you I never made a mistake. Haven't in my career yet, but I've paid tens of thousands of dollars a year in insurance, and I get it. For my errors and omissions insurance, I say, what the hell, all this? I mean, it's probably up over, it's easily over $100,000 now. What could have I done with that money? Well, you know what that money did to me? It let me sleep at night. Not having to micromanage my staff. My staff, if they were all watching here, the young lady who manages my office, who's vested herself as a small partner in the business, is giggling because she knows how I can be a micromanager. Any top business owner can do that, but that isn't what we do best, and that's going to get your office messed up. But let's get into lawyers' professional liability and why you need to have it. I see a lot of lawyers in my speakings throughout the country, and I do speak numerous times annually all over the country, so I get to meet lawyers of all kinds of ages and backgrounds and different parts of the country, and what a great group you are. I promise you, I'm not saying this to, again, be brown-nosed Bill. You really are my favorite professionals in the world. But we're in a situation here where I see a lot of lawyers, especially solo firms, fly naked. And again, my book, The Naked Lawyer, How to Leverage the Multi-Billion-Dollar Insurance Industry to Your Advantage. That's the name of my book, and I'll talk about it. I get a free copy of that at the end of this. Anyone watching this, 24/7, you can call a phone number, you can go online, you can get that. You can pause right now and you can go order it. You'll see for yourself, and I will mail it to you, not a cheesy old ebook, although if you like Kindle and all that stuff, you can read it online too, what have you, but you'll get it for free. But back to being naked. So I see lawyers without any lawyer's professional liability. And I've had lawyers say to me, I'll never make a mistake. Come on, man. Really? I mean, the greatest basketball player ever, I'm a huge basketball fan, played in college, Michael Jordan. You see I slept LeBron in there. Got some Ohioans here today. And if he wins the championship in 2015, I'm going to say he's going to be the greatest ever. But whoever you think is the greatest ever, Bill Russell, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Michael, LeBron, Kobe, Kareem, and on, football, Tom Brady, the cheater, right? I'm a huge Patriots fan. Peyton Manning, Jim Brown, Walter Payton. Go to every sport. Babe Ruth, Hank Aaron, Clemens, Barry Bonds. I know the steroid guys. Whoever the greatest, those guys made mistakes all day long. What was it that Michael Jordan said? I failed and failed and failed again, and that's when I succeeded. Well, let's look at that as the same within our business. How many times have we made a mistake and maybe it didn't come back to haunt us? Having teenage and college-age kids, what I try to display to them, what my father and mother displayed to me, just because you didn't get caught doesn't mean it was right. And isn't that the truth? So you take all that risk, transference of risk, and you get what is known as lawyer's professional liability. It is, for a small firm, dirt cheap again. There's a misconception that it starts at $5,000 and it's crappy protection. I'll get into the crappy protection, but because those policies are written very stripped down and very basic, where you're in a situation where it can be very harrowing, and you're paying something for not a whole lot. Yes, something is better than nothing, but when you can turn the tables, which I'll share with you how to do that here shortly, why not? Obviously, the answer would be yes. So, lawyer's professional liability. Here are the gaps, fatal gaps, or the naked parts that I see here. For example, to start with, first dollar defense. So you've got a situation where you have a deductible with your liability. On your office business insurance, there is no deductible for general liability. The insurance company does not want you trying to settle cases on your own for any type of general liability, whether it be the data breach, whether it be a slip and fall. That's on your regular office business insurance. But for your professional liability over here, the insurance industry is saying you're going to have to pay the first, and the most common deductible is either $2,500 or $5,000. Some of the bigger firms get into $10,000, $15,000, $25,000 because, again, to them it's relative. But you're looking, let's use $5,000 as an example. So you're in an example where now you've got a $5,000 deductible and you get a certified letter in the mail that Joe and Jane, disgruntled clients, were very unhappy with your services and they're suing you for negligent representation because of their son, little Jimmy, who was selling dope, ended up in prison, and to be kind of mean-spirited, they've enabled little Jimmy, their whole lives, and they're just angry at the world because they failed as parents, or so they feel. Just an example. It could be anything. A husband, a wife, representation, a divorce. Ooh, man, divorce, very personal. Money is lost, reputation is lost, sex things are lost. I mean, it's divorces are ugly. But you get that letter in the mail and what have you, and from the bottom of your heart, you did one hell of a job representing them. And these are just bitter, angry people at the world, and they're going to drag you down because they don't want to pay your fees, for example, and they want to get a better settlement, and they found one of your peers who doesn't like you maybe because they're jealous of you, and they say, oh yeah, Bob Smith is a crappy lawyer. I could have done a better job. Don't you love people like that? When you know that you are a top flight, that you did, like I said, one hell of a job. Well, that's a situation where that first $5,000 you're going to have to pay, even to make it go away. That's coming out of your pocket, whether you're found to be negligent or not. You're already starting, you've got a $5,000 hit. So right then and there, that's almost like a negotiation tool. Let's say what it comes down to, they're really looking just to cheese down or beat down some of your outstanding fees. So they figure, why not take a flyer because they've got a brother-in-law? The old brother-in-law again, remember, we'll bring him in throughout the whole thing here, where he's going to tell you how to beat the system. The guru of all gurus, an expert on everything, and the guy's a failure in life. But he knows everything about everything. That's the old brother-in-law. We all have one of those. But my point is very simply that you're looking at a situation where you can buy that down, where you have what is called zero first dollar defense, or it's zero deductible, and it's called FDD, acronym first dollar defense. Therefore, the only time you pay your deductible is if you are found to be negligent in a claim. They will defend you for free to make this go away. Now, if you are found to be negligent and your office just goofed or you just goofed, then that's a situation where it's like car insurance. You run into someone unless you're in a no-fault state, and you're in a situation where you have to pay your deductible. Or better yet, best example, you're driving home, you hit some ice or whatever, you try to avoid a pothole, you hit a tree, you're out your deductible, $500 to fix your car, $1,000, whatever your deductible is, assuming you carry collision coverage on your car. That's the idea. You're like, yep, I screwed up, gosh darn it, or you're home, a windstorm comes through or something like that. A tree falls on your house, you're out your deductible. Most people carry $1,000 deductible. that stings, but thank God no one was hurt. You get that part of it. But who wants to pay a deductible right off the bat for something you're not even negligent for? So that's something you can buy down. And some companies do it for free, depending on your area of practice. Even if you're a high-risk area of practice, intellectual property, something along those lines, debt collecting firm tends to be a high risk, if you will, to the insurance industry. You can buy that. It's in the hundreds of dollars a year. And I'm not talking closer to 1,000. I'm talking closer to 200 or 300 a year. Definitely well worth your money. But does your current broker tell you that? I see the vast majority of prospects that come to me don't have that. And they're like, oh, I never knew you could get that. So there's one huge game changer for you there. The next one, you're going to have a situation where you can get into what is called an aggregate deductible. Let's look at, for example, someone who's like a debt collector. If you do any type of class action type work, and a lot of firms are getting into that because it can be lucrative, and let's say you get into a situation where now that class action group turns around and turns the tables and sues you, now you're in a situation where, could you imagine if you don't have what is known as an aggregate deductible, you're going to have to pay and say you're found to be negligent or you don't have that first dollar defense, every deductible is going to apply to every person. So if you had 200 people win a lawsuit against your firm because you did a crappy job representing the parking garage, where they were overcharging, and they turn around and flip the script on you, and another one of your peers sues you for poor representation, say you had a $5,000 deductible, well, 2 people would be 10 grand, 20 people would be 100 grand, 200 people would be $1 million. If you have an aggregate deductible, it's usually 1 to 3 times your deductible. So you're whole for the whole loss. If you had the class action group you were representing come back and sue you, all you pay is your regular, say you had the $5,000 deductible, for as much as up to $15,000, which is a lot less. Oh, and by the way, that's almost always free. And if it isn't free, it might again run $100, $200, $300 a year, so well worth it. The next one, and this is a huge one, acronym CEOL versus CEIL. CEOL, acronym for that, claims expense outside of your limits. You definitely want this. Versus CEIL, claims expense inside of your limits. What that means is this: if you get into a lawsuit on your professional liability where goes on and there's defense after defense after defense, that erodes from your liability limit. And there are a lot of firms watching today, and we even have clients who say, yeah, I'd love to get the $1 million. We always recommend $1 million as a starting point. But they say, I'm a little mom and pop firm, and I do mostly just real estate and probate. What are the chances? So they might only have a $100,000 limit. And that's what they feel their budget can afford, even though we say for an extra $800 a year you can get $1 million. Mike, we'll look at that at renewal or this and that. That's fine. Good enough. We get a waiver signed in the file, what have you. But if if a case dragged on, the defense costs in that $100,000 would be taking it down. That's claims expense inside CEI, inside limit. So that's going to take that down. So therefore, if it has cost the insurance company for their lawyer that they have on representation, on retainer, if there's $60,000 in expense costs, because this dragged on for years, because you've got the person suing you just has nothing to lose, what have you. Now you're looking at, say they're getting pro bono work done on their end. Now your exposure is only down to $40,000. If you recognize, the math, there's 60 taken off of the 100 is 40. That's a bad deal. To get what is known as claims expense outside limits, that means your defense cost could be $1 gazillion, a number that doesn't exist. But therefore, your $100,000 in that example I gave you would be intact. So you definitely want that. Again, we're talking in the hundreds of dollars a year, closer to $300, $400 a year than we're talking sometimes as low as $150 a year, depending on how much revenues your firm does in your area of practice, versus closer to $1,000. So those are game changers, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, that's on your lawyer's professional liability. And then I'll end by saying this. When you're talking about all these optional endorsements and what have you, an expert like I am will let you know that. But then the last part of the equation is there only a handful of companies that write lawyer's professional liability and write it properly and write it well. Some companies stick their hand into the fire and get burned. They're in, they're out, they're in, they're out, they're in, they're out. we're in a situation here where we represent only the best companies. Again, an expert's going to know who's in it to win it. There we go. I'm going to start rhyming on you here. Use some really lame cliches, right? Who's been doing it for a long time. And that's, again, my job. An expert is going to know there are companies that come wandering in, what I like to call the latest shiny object. Looky over here, and the car companies love to do that because a car is literally a shiny object, okay? Well, your lawyer's professional liability, again, and I know insurance, again, we know it's the most glamorous, sexy, vibrant industry out there. Right. Let's call it what it is. It's boring. I get it. I won't take offense. But in this situation here, don't get caught up with the shiny objects. Don't get caught up with the new insurance company that's out there. Don't get caught with a little regional company that has all these weird things. Work with the expert who's going to be to position you short and long term. Therefore, you don't get into a situation where you're screwed. Last thing on lawyer's professional liability that I want to talk about is you're talking about your retroactive date, which will lead to your retirement, death, disability, sale of your firm. The retroactive date is huge. You cannot move your lawyer's professional liability, just like I can't move my errors and omissions liability mid-period. If you and I get to scramble with our car insurance agent or broker, or home insurance, or even our office business insurance, workers' comp, a little bit, they short rate you. But most insurance, you can say, my broker is a dingling, she's an idiot, they don't return my calls, it can be service related, protection related. Most who come across me are like, what in the world have I been doing? And they get rid of it midterm. But your professional liability, your LPL, lawyer's professional liability, you cannot get rid of that midterm because you've got what is called a retro date. Now, if you're watching this and you have none, let's talk immediately, okay? But at the end of the day, or talk if you've got a broker you feel that is an expert. Obviously, I don't want this to all be like I'm throwing a pitch at you, but I know from earning it how good I am. There's no, what is it? Was it Casey Stengel or Leo DeRocher once said, it's not bragging if it's not true. If it is true, it's not bragging if it's true. Well, that's the fact. That's who I am and that's what I do. But am I the only great insurance broker in the country for lawyers? No. But am I one of the few? Absolutely yes. And good luck finding the others. It'd be like winning the lottery if you happen to know who the others may be. And I have a concept of who a couple of them may be. But the point is very simply this, that your retro date is going to be a situation where the day you started your firm, and yes, there's statute of limitations, but your protection goes back to if you open on May 3rd of 1991, for example, that would be your retro date. And you would not be able to move your protection until May 3rd of 2016 if we're already past that in 2015. So that's key there. So you always want to make sure your retro date. I have seen generalists and they do that because they can save money. Because when you're in your first 7 years is the average. Some are 5, some are 3, but usually 7. It's called step rating. So what they do is for a lawyer who has no protection, you're leaving the big firm, or you just haven't had it because you were like, well, I thought it was so expensive and what have you. It's not required by law. You're naked as a jaybird, as I say. But that's a situation where the rate goes up about 5 to 10% every year. So I've seen generalists, peers in my industry, take down your rate because it's a discounted rate in the first 7 years, and you lose your retro date, which is horrible. I mean, that's ridiculous. And then over the next 7 years, you're going to be paying it back plus some because, see, when you get claims, free discounts and what have you, so always pay attention to your retro date. Also, if you have a partner retire or die, the top writing lawyers' professional liability insurers will include them infinitely. If excuse me, if you had a partner that was getting up in years, great, the founder, legendary, maybe getting a little forgetful, as we call it, senior moments. I even get that sometimes in the office in my early 50s, where I sit there and I say to myself, I get in a train of thought, and where was I talking about? And everyone looks at me, and you get that uncomfortable feeling. Well, that could happen professionally, where you just make a mistake, or just human, whatever the thing is. Their protection, if they retire or die, will go on infinitely, and you don't have to pay extra for it if you're with the proper insurer. The other thing is if you sold your firm, or if you wanted to move midterm because your protection is horrible and the pricing made sense to do so, which is rare. But say let's use the example, you're selling your firm. That you're in a situation where you're talking about what you need is tail coverage. Don't ever let someone tell you that if you are moving from your current broker over to, for example, yours truly, that you have to purchase tail coverage. We would just pick up your retro date, going back to the example I gave just a few minutes ago, to May 3rd of 91, for example, and just pick it up from there. The only time you need to purchase tail coverage, and it is very important, is when you sell your firm and you're completely done. Then you want to do it to protect you as your assets, because if you sell your firm, even if you just go out of business, you just retire and say, I'm done, you send out a letter, you've worked a great career, you've been a great community person, you've created all kinds of wealth for the community, you've given to charity, you run the good race, you fought the good fight. That's a situation where you still want to have that tail coverage. It's usually 1 times, can be up to 3 times your annual premium, and you can pay that in payments and what have you. So that's lawyer's professional liability. I will finish up in closing that this has been an absolute passion of mine. It's been a pleasure. When I saw the insurance industry changing years ago, and I saw it start with Geico and Progressive, if you watch any amount of television, especially sports, what is every other freaking commercial? It's the pale lady on Progressive, or it's that stupid lizard, or gecko, I guess it is. I call him a lizard. You know, that they're always on there beating on insurance and save money, save money, save money. And when I began my insurance career, certainly I prospected personal lines, homes, autos, and what have you. That was a situation where that was great. I built up a great life and I built a great practice. But then as I started to insure lawyers throughout the years, I said, what a great class of people. And there's 2 other niches I do. That's a story for another day. But lawyers are my favorite. And what it comes down to is very simply this, that I saw that personal insurance, led by car insurance, was going to become a commodity. And I got ahead of that. And I don't say that to impress you or to make you think, boy, what an impressive guy and what a smart guy and he's got a crystal ball. I'm not saying that. What I said is, look, do I want to be out there hustling and being a generalist and being, jack of all trades, master of none? Or do I want to specialize in something and be the absolute best? That is my goal, to be the absolute best. And, according to the awards that my firm has won, thanks to lawyers like you watching this and my great clients, and I say that with all sincerity, not like some insincere sales guy, that, I wouldn't have any of it. This is what it's all about. So this is serious business. We have fun with it. I'll make insurance something that you never have to worry about. We've got a very unique way of doing business with you. You're going to love it. You're going to feel like you're royalty. That's not just platitude. Great service is expected, period. But we go above and beyond. In your welcome package, in the quote package, you'll see if you look at that. Again, not a sales pitch, but taking the bore and the, oh God, it's like taxes almost, and not to pick on CPAs, but at least that's one for me. When taxes roll around, I'm just like, whatever. I tell Cheryl, you take care of it. I don't want to deal with it. We get a letter, we didn't receive your 1065 form. I'm like, whatever, just take care of it. I don't want anything to do with it. Well, you won't have any of that anymore going on. You won't have to figure it out. You shouldn't have to figure it out. So I appreciate all of you watching today. Hopefully you've learned a lot. I've shared everything I know in terms of that. Would love the opportunity to earn your business. Again, not a sales pitch, because I know I'm the best for you. But if you can apply this to your current broker, good for you too. Take that information and run with it, whatever's best for you. I wish you continued success in your law business. All the best things to you and your family. And I hope our paths cross soon.